Bonjour everyone and welcome back to my channel The Waves of Your Soul. My name is Marine, I am a French tarot reader and passionate, and today I wanted to do a VR to a tarot tag that I have seen going around in all the tarot YouTube channels. That is a tag that was created by Brant over at Moonbaby, and the hashtag is tarot collector, and it is pretty much a video where everyone goes through their collection. There's a few prompts that we go through about which kind of decks stand out in our tarot collection. I have really enjoyed watching all the VRs that everyone is doing, and so I thought it would be fun for me to do the same, because I really enjoy those videos. I love to see what other decks people use, why it resonates with them, and chances are if you're watching this video then you love tarot as much as me, and hopefully you will enjoy this video too. So if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, may I invite you to do so. You can find all my links below. Follow me on Instagram. If you do enjoy these videos, then please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up, as I really appreciate it. And as I'm only starting on my YouTube journey not that long ago, so it really helps my channel to grow. I would also love it if you were to leave me a comment. Let me know if there's any decks that I'm gonna show that you enjoy, or even if you have done a VR of this specific tag yourself, then let me know in the comments. Give me the link, I'll go and watch it. And I love to talk and engage with all of you fellow tarot lovers out there, so definitely leave me a comment if you have done a reply yourself. So that's it. I think let's get started, because there's quite a few decks to cover. So the first prompt that was proposed by this hashtag is focused around our most expensive deck. Now there's definitely two ways we can look at this. Either the deck that we spend the most money on, or the deck that would be now the most expensive. I'm gonna go with the one that I've spent the most money on, because I'm gonna show the ones that go for the most money in the later prompts, so bending the rules here a little bit. But the first deck that it was my most expensive deck is the Wild Messengers tarot. Now the reason why this was so expensive is because it is a indie tarot, and it comes with a huge guidebook. Well, I mean, you don't have to get the guidebook, but definitely I feel like this deck is useless without the guidebook, to be honest. This guidebook is absolutely fantastic. It's full of journaling prompts, it's full of self-development ideas and pointers, and just meditation point. Like, this guidebook on its own is worth the money. But the whole concept of this deck is that it is an animal deck, and as you can see, it's coming in those wonderful watercolors. I have talked about it in my previous video, I think, or in a video that will come out soon, so I won't go out in too much detail, but it's definitely a fantastic deck. And the reason why it was one of the most expensive ones for me is because I live in Reunion Island, which is a tropical island. I'll show you the backs, and I'll flick through while I talk. So I currently live on a tropical island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and as you can imagine, things to be delivered in the middle of the ocean is super expensive. So this deck already, I think altogether, is about $80 when you want the guidebook as well, which is invaluable really. But when on top of that I had to add the transport abroad, like the international shipping, and then also I think I got custom taxed on this, because fuck my life, this happens sometimes when you order indie decks. So it was an expensive purchase, but I will say that I use this deck all the time. It is definitely, even though it's called a tarot, to me I use it as an oracle, because they have completely reworked the system. Everything is based on alchemy and elements, and the guidebook is so fantastic that I wouldn't really feel called to use this to do huge spreads. I more do like one card pulls kind of things. But this deck is so worth it, because it's taught me so much. It has opened the doors to me for learning more about alchemy, and I absolutely love it so much. So I really recommend it. I might do a video in presenting this deck more in depth. If you're interested, let me know, because I don't see that many people talk about it. So that's the first, that was, you know, most expensive deck. The second one is the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, again because it came up from America. It's an indie deck. In itself, I think the deck is like not hugely expensive, but I don't know, I guess this particular time I was ordering stuff, I had bad luck, so I had where, there we go, hi the tower. I got charged again with this for like international, you know, of course international shipping, but on top custom whatever charges. And so it was more like the things around the deck that cost money for me rather than just the deck itself. But this deck is absolutely stunning. It's independent, so I love, you know, sponsoring. Is that a word? I don't know. I'm not really sponsoring. How would you say that? I love endorsing, or, you know, contributing to the livelihood of independent artists. I absolutely adore this deck. It is one of my most used deck of 2020. When it's made its stop into my favorite many times, and I just absolutely adore it. It's a good all-rounder. I can use it for everybody and everyone. Clear reader, the quality is fantastic. Really nice matte cardstock. It came pre-edged in black, and the backs are really plain black, and I love that. So I don't regret this purchase because I know I'm gonna get a huge use out of it. Not just reading for me, but reading for others as well. It's definitely a great all-rounder. Okay, so the next prompt is the least expensive deck, and least expensive deck is a deck I found used, and it's the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. This is a French version. I found it for 10 euros. I was never really expecting to find anyone to sell used tarot decks on the island I live on, because like I mentioned, it is in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It is off the coast of Madagascar. Everything takes months to arrive, and tarot is niche enough already that, you know, it was just very random. We find a lot of oracle decks here. People enjoy oracle decks because there's a lot of like energician practitioners and Reiki practitioners and masseuse and all of that stuff. But tarot is like, you know, I don't really see them a lot where I live or anything like that. I have to get everything from abroad. But this lady, she was saying she was selling this deck that she bought because she thought it was like an oracle, and in the end realized it was a tarot and that she couldn't read with it. So she sold it to me for 10 euros. It's literally like brand new. As you can see, the gilding is not even used. It's mass market. This is the French version, but you can of course get this deck in English. And this is a very unusual deck. It has, some people say it gives them like connection with their inner child. To me, I get like creepy shadow vibes from it. This is a deck that makes me look at stuff I don't necessarily want to look at. It's a deck that I love it, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a special energy where I'm gonna use it if I want to explore triggers, explore trauma, understand dreams. That's also a very good one for understanding dreams, and it's very deep and very unusual deck I'm using if I want to do really deep personal development work. And I thought for 10 euros that was a great find because, like I said, it was never used. Like, she hadn't even mixed it or anything. So yeah, this is the least expensive deck in my collection. Moving on, as a category that I have really enjoyed seeing other people's responses to, and this is the category of the decks that other people might want to steal. Now, I don't really know everyone else's taste, so I'm going off on the kind of rare decks or the decks that would be worth money, and maybe that's what people would want to steal. So the first one is part of, and this is actually quite a story. So the decks that the people are most likely gonna want to steal are those three, and they are all part of decks. I put them all at the same time. And now those three decks, for the people who know tarot, you will know that this one and this one are particularly very expensive and super hard to find decks. And this one is actually out of print now, even though there was a new edition. This particular edition, you can't find it anymore. So those three are so special. I will flick through them while we speak. But it's Tarot d'Ali, the Masonic Tarot deck by Jean Bauchard, and the Granatea deck. So those three decks actually belonged to someone else, and they are all used. And it's a very funny story of how I got into them. So I'll show this one first, because this one is like the apple of my eyes, and it's so special. So this is a Tarot Masonic by Jean Bauchard. It is from 1987, so it is also my oldest deck in the sense of like when it was printed. It is older than me. I'm 30, and this is like 33 years old. This, like I said, those three decks belong to someone's collection, and what happened was that I knew of Jean Bauchard because I have the Tarot des Alchimistes, which is another deck by the same author, which is mass market in France that you can get quite easily. And from that I did a little bit of research, and I knew of this Masonic Tarot deck, which is no longer in print and which goes on eBay for ridiculous prices, like 200, 300, 400 euros, and it's so hard to find. It's literally like super hard to find. But I saw the magician online and I fell in love. I just fell in love of this magician. It just, like, the fact that it's not quite created, the face is not fully formed because it's still in the, it's not really channeled into the material world, and I thought, this deck is wonderful. So I went on eBay and I realized that I was never gonna get it because it was way outside of my price zone, and I went to bed, and in the middle of the night I woke up and I was, I like in my mind's eye or whatever, my intuition was like, you need to look for this deck again. You need to look for this deck. And I was like, why do my guides want me to be broke? Stop telling me to buy this deck. I'm never gonna be able to get it. Next morning, I speak about it with my parents, saying, well, I don't know, I don't know why I keep being like, this deck keeps coming into my mind. I wake up in the night and it's in my head, and it's like I'm being whispered, this deck, this deck, this deck. That made us talk about finding used decks, and he was like, why don't you check Facebook Marketplace to see what used deck are there, because you're not gonna get this one. But that conversation led on to talking about used decks in general. So I go on Marketplace, and what do I see? This deck that was listed like 2 hours ago. So in the island I live on, which I need to reinforce the fact that nobody ever sells tarot where I live. It's just not a thing. Like, it's just the most incredible thing ever that this deck would be sold in my island, local to me, in perfect quality, may I add. It's like perfect. So straight away I messaged this lady that was selling it, and I was like, oh my god, I will buy this deck, like, straight away. Turns out she was selling the collection from her late husband, who had a wonderful, small but wonderful tarot collection. And so she very kindly presented me this deck when I met her, which I loved, and it was in perfect condition, and I was like so happy, because literally by the time I saw this deck and I was holding it in my hands, not even a week had passed. Like, it's one of those where sometimes, I don't know, I got lucky. Like, this deck was just meant to be with me, I think, because some decks you want to get and you struggle for so long to get them, and this one, by the time I found out that it existed and I was holding it in my hands, I think it was like 7 days, which is insane. And so she presented me with other decks of his collections, which I ended up buying 5 in total. I bought most of his collection. I think the only decks I didn't buy was a regular RWS and a regular Tarot de Marseille, but the other two I got, which are also, I guess, decks that people would want to steal, is the Dali Tarot. I don't know which edition it is. I don't think it's particularly expensive, because I know there was a new edition of this deck that was released not that long ago, but it's out of print, so I assume some people might want to steal it because it's hard to find, and the newest edition of it goes for crazy prices. This deck is beautiful. apparently he was her husband's most used decks, and it's like in perfect condition. So this lovely man was taking such good care of his decks. You can see the style is very daddy, of course. So that's one that I'm so appreciative, because I love the artwork, and again, it's just that connection. To know that it belonged to someone before me makes it even more special, and to know that I can give them a good home, that I'm gonna take care of them and everything, is super special to me. And finally, there is the Grant Eteya, ou Tarot Égyptien, which is an also out of print deck that this is not a particularly old printing of it, so not the one that would go for like crazy amount of prices, but it is still an out of print deck that I believe some people might want to steal, because it's hard to get. I think I couldn't see it anywhere anymore being printed. I'm not too sure actually. Yeah, I don't know which edition this is. You know, if you know, it's got those backs. So if anyone out there knows, it has its place in my collection, and I believe potentially one that people might want to steal, only from the fact that I might be wrong, but I don't see it being published anywhere at the moment. So at least the Grimaud edition. So let me know, maybe this is actually still being printed. I'm curious. Also, if anyone out there has any materials or can recommend me any books to learn more about this. Of course, I'm French, so I speak French, so if you have any books in English or in French, I would love to know, because this is very obscure deck. I don't find a huge amount of books on it, so I'd love to know if anyone has studied it. If you could throw some, you know, recommendations of book or kind of study content in the comments, I would love that so much. So definitely these three as part of the collection that I got from this lovely lady and her late husband. They are, you know, very special, and they're like my precious. I am like Gollum in the ring with those three. The next prompt is our strangest deck. My strangest deck for me is the Morgan's Tarot. Now, even though this is called a tarot, actually it is an oracle. So the first thing about that's strange. Second thing is, this deck is completely kooky. It is quirky, it is freaky, it is its own thing. These are the backs. It says love and God, love is God. It is a deck from the 70s originally, published by US Games. And it is, like I said, even though it's called a tarot, it is very much an oracle deck. And it depicts kind of black and white, as you can see, images here that are completely bonkers. Whoever did this was on some kind of acid trip. They were loving life in the 70s. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because despite the fact that it's completely bonkers, it has some much gold nuggets in there. Like this card, Drink Gold. You have heavy, but then you have stuff like pigs and fishes surround you. And it's like, what? Girls say what now? It's like, you have duck, what you do? Again, it's like, am I supposed to, you know, are you telling me I'm looking at my own backside too much? Like, this deck is so quirky. So you have more, I'd say, normal cards, like always remember this, but then you have some very much strange things. And then you have things that are very powerful, but also, you know, this deck doesn't fuck about. Like, there is nothing you can do, for example. So definitely one you don't want to be pulling out to, you know, for everything and everyone. But I love its vibe. Do not meddle. This is one of my favorite cards. Do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger. How funny is that? And true. Really, this deck is like all about you pulling your own meaning. It is very 70s, it is very hippie vibes, and yet it has a lot of wisdom, a lot of interesting cards, and I absolutely love its quirkiness, I love its strangeness, and I love this deck because I have nothing like it in my collection. So this is definitely my strangest deck. The next prompt is the decks least likely that other people have in their collection. So there's probably not very many decks that people wouldn't have in their collection, but there is one that I haven't seen any video on YouTube about, and this is Le Tarot du Chien. The author is Carole Cedillo and the illustrations are done by Claude Trappé. Now this deck is a pip deck based around dogs. The cards are huge. They are kind of like, this is the back. They are this very, I'm gonna try and show you. The feel of this deck is like drawing paper. It's like, it literally feels like watercolor paper. I don't know if you can tell the texture of it. I don't have any deck like this. Can you see the lines here? It very much is like actual paper. I don't think there's any lamination on this deck. Those little dogs are so cute. The colors are so vibrant. So this is the Empress. We have the Temperance. And as you can see, the colors are really vibrant. Despite the fact that it's a dog deck, it is a deck that still, you know, follows the representation of the archetypes. You can definitely read with this deck. It's not just a gimmick deck, because the representation of the so as you can see it's pipish, but the representation of the major arcana, for example here's a death card, you know, it's very much like a normal tarot death card. It's not like gimmicky or like a toy, you know, if that makes any sense what I'm trying to say. So the colors are super vibrant. I love those little guys. My favorite is the cup suit. The cup suit is all pink, and let me show you, that little dog just looks like he's kind of scared and kind of, you know, I don't know, it just looks so cute. So I just love this little deck. It's super fun. Here are the swords, and the guidebook is actually really, really, really good. Like, so here's the Hierophant, and we have the Magician. And the Strength card is beautiful. So as you can see, the colors are beautiful. The cards are really fun. The depictions, and the guidebook is like really chunky, and it's very, very clever. This is proper like tarot development, in-depth tarot knowledge, not just gimmick tarot, you know, kind of gimmick dog tarot vibe. It's very, very serious deck actually when you read the guidebook. The people who have made this definitely knew a lot about tarot. They have done their research. There's a bibliography. They chose each dog in accordance to their specific behaviors, and there's a lot of hidden symbolism in the cards. There's a lot of sacred geometry even. Like, this deck is actually very surprising, and but it's also one I never see people talk about. The next prompt now that we have is our oldest deck. Now I didn't want to do oldest deck, you know, as in the one that were printed the first, because I've already shown you that would be Le Tarot Maçonnique de Jean Beauchamp, which is from 1987. So I've based it on the decks that I've had the longest, and the two decks that I've had the longest are the RWS right here, which is the original one, which is the deck I learned on, which I have trimmed and kind of ruined by trimming. Not ruined, but I don't know. I think I kind of regret trimming it, and that never happens. I love modifying my decks, I love trimming my decks, but because this is the first deck I used, and because I learned on it with borders, now later on, much later on, I have trimmed the borders. It almost feels like it's not the same deck I learned on, and now I'm kind of like disappointed. You know what I mean? Has that ever happened to you? I don't really regret any, like I said, I don't regret any. Well, you've all seen the RWS, so I'm not gonna go on about it, but I never regret my deck's modification normally, but because this was my first, I wish I had kept it in its original state for the emotional kind of meaning, but maybe I just need to get over myself, because maybe I'm just pathetic. So this is definitely my oldest deck, the deck I got around the same time as well to learn on. Is the Hidden Realm Tarot. In French it is Tarot des Royaumes Cachés. This is the French version, and this is the deck I got at the same time as the RWS. At the time I didn't even know it was not really a deck for beginners. Not that I would say any deck is for beginners or not, but you know what I mean. It doesn't fall, it's like very much portraits, characters of very fave vibe, so not the easiest deck to learn on because it's all portraits. There's no you know, it doesn't really follow the traditional RWS or Marseille significations, but because it was one of the first decks I got, for me it has that magic of tarot magic, the magic that you're holding the keys to something beyond you, the keys to a magical world, the keys that, you know, are gonna be able for you to read your soul. And this deck, due to the fact that it was so portraitive and so not and so unique in the fact that it's a fey world and all of this fey energy, it actually made me use my intuition a lot more, and it made me really spend so much time with this deck thinking, what is this deck trying to tell me? What is this character trying to tell me? And it is beautiful. This is definitely still to this day one of the most powerful, beautiful, grounding, and like emotional decks that I have. I will treasure this deck forever. And yeah, it's so special to me. So if you've watched it this far, thank you so much for still being with me. I appreciate it so much. But the next prompt that was mentioned is our newest deck. So the newest deck I received in my collection is the Dark Goddess Tarot. I have put mine in a little bag because the big box it came in is just not, yeah, it's not it. It does come with a fantastic guidebook, and this deck I love already. It has definitely made its place, even though I only got it maybe 3 weeks ago, I'd say. It is a mass market deck, but originally it was an indie deck. It came out this year, and it's based on the, as you can see, it's a divine feminine deck, like a goddess deck. So every card represents a different goddess from around the world, and it's very diverse. It definitely is very intelligent and clever, and it is super powerful. I have wanted this deck for so long when it was in indie version, but I couldn't get my hands on it, and then because it was out of print, it was going for ridiculous prices. So when I found out that it was coming as a mass market, I was so glad, because I love this deck so much. The artwork really resonates with me. I don't really use this deck as a tarot yet because I'm not comfortable with all the 78 goddesses yet. Of course, I don't know all of them. So for now, what I've done is I'm just pulling a card to work with a goddess for the week or the month, or you know, well, I'll see how I feel. But it's like for now I'm just doing a 1 to 2 card pull, leaving those on my altar, and kind of like getting to know about the goddess, and using the guidebook as a step to do my own research and to learn more about each goddess archetype. Okay, moving on. The next prompt is the decks that made me want to collect in the first place. The very first deck that really made me want to collect is the Dark Mansion Tarot. So why this particular deck? Because before this deck I was only really getting mass market decks. I thought that all you really could get was mass market decks. I didn't know that there was such a thing as indie decks, independently produced tarot decks. I thought you could only buy your decks on Amazon or Book Depository. And like I mentioned, because I'm currently living on a tropical island, you know, there was very few shops for me to even buy decks at. So it's only when I realized that there was independently printed decks, and I particularly saw this one, that I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And that was it. I was hooked. And that was just like the beginning, you know, of a very deep love journey for me and the tarot. But this deck particularly is the first indie deck I got. It took months for it to come to me, and every day I would check the post box, and every day I would be like, is it gonna come? Is it gonna come? And you know, I have loved it ever since it has arrived in my collection. It's like this deck has a very Tim Burton-esque, very cartoonish vibe, but it speaks to my inner child, because when I was younger I would read books with this kind of aesthetic, and it really speaks to me. It makes my inner child so happy, and I love it so much. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need it, and ever since then it has not disappointed. It follows the RWS system very kind of closely, but it's got its own kind of Victorian, more like, yeah, kind of Tim Burton-esque feel to it, and I love it. I just think it's quirky, it's funny, it has a sense of humor, and it's a great all-rounder for me. Okay, and finally our last prompt And again, if you have made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The last prompt that is mentioned is our fave decks. Now, this is a worst question you can ask anyone who has tarot, because we don't like choosing, right? The reason why we have so many decks is because they all bring something different to our lives, they all mean something different to us, they all bring a different voice, a different feel, a different vibe. We're talking about favorite decks, of course. First of all, I'd have to mention again Le Tarot Masonique, Le Tarot de Dali, because they have a very special place in my heart, not only from the story on how I got them, but about the fact that I resonate with the artwork so much. I resonate, you know, when I hold them, it's something special. It feels like very, I don't know how to explain, but it just resonates with me so much, those two. So they would definitely need to be in my favorites. I would also have to mention, you know, the Dark Mansion that I've, you know, just showed you. Another one that I absolutely love, and I always mention in part of my favorite, is A Stunning Tarot by Yona Sayaus. This is the first edition. I believe she's coming out with a second edition soon, which will have smaller cards, but this is a indie deck. But I love this deck so much. It is a limited color palette of yellow, reds, pinks, and purple, and then white and black. The line work is fantastic. Every suit is based around a different theme. So swords are mermaids, the purple is wands, which is more witchy vibes. Then you have the pentacles are Egyptians in yellow, and the cups are so this is a pentacle, and then the cups are more Arabian kind of feel with let me try it. For example, here is our King of Cups. So I love this tarot deck so much. This is part of one of those that if ever there was the zombie apocalypse, this is one of the first one I grab, because, you know, we still need to be reading cards even when the zombies are here. Like, priorities, right? This would be in my zombie survival backpack for sure. And I love it so much. This to me is my fantasy deck. It's the deck that I use when I want to escape reality, when I want to go into another world. When this deck does that for me, it allows me to go somewhere else, and I love it so much. So it's definitely one of my favorite that I go back to again and again and again. And I wanted to quickly mention one deck that I got recently-ish, but that has definitely become a favorite, which is Tarot de Marseille Wait. I have mentioned it more in detail in my latest video around my top 5 decks of 2020, so if you want to find out a little bit more about this one, you can check that out. But I'll show it quickly here. It's a French deck that is a mix between Marseille and RWS, and it's just fantastic. It's really elegant, it's really cohesive. It is full of historical references, the colors are great, the cardstock is fantastic, and to me this is a new classic, and I can see myself using it for absolutely everything. So this is everything. Thank you so much for watching it. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this video, then please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up, as like I mentioned, it really helps my channel to grow. If you are not yet subscribed, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, because there will be of course plenty more content where this came from. And in the meantime, until my video, I want to send you lots and lots of good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul.